Welcome back to another edition of the Convergence. Today, I've got Peter Sisson from certifyit on the show, and we're going to have a really fascinating conversation about deepfakes and how to overcome deepfakes. And with all of the new AI technology that's coming out there that can mimic you can mimic videos and audio files, certifyit has a really great solution that I think you'll find really helpful, particularly in secure communications. This conversation is interesting because Peter and I really hit it off and have continued our conversations in the weeks since we did the recording. Part two of this, which I believe will come up next week, is going to be even more fascinating because we start talking about the AI singularity, the things that are on the horizon, and his predictions for how AI is going to affect every single aspect of our lives and work in the next 10 years. So check it out. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you're here on the podcast, we also have a video version of this over on YouTube you can find at the Convergence channel. Okay, here we go with Peter Sisson. Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Convergence. Today I have Peter Sisson, who is coming to me from London right now. We've been chatting this morning. I guess it's this morning my time. It's this evening Peter's time.
That is right. It's 5 p.m. It's time for drinks, and
it is time for. You're doing a podcast. I mean, you can drink on the podcast. We don't mind. It's not against the rules. But Peter's with me. We want to talk about certifyit, which is the company that you've got right now. But also, as we did in the pre-interview, we found a lot of synergies in the market of Web3 and AI and all of these new emerging technologies. My joke right now is I don't ask people where's the market going to be in 5 years. I ask them where it's going to be in 5 weeks, because that seems to be right about the time frame that we can work inside of, and we can't even predict that at this point. But Peter, thanks for coming on the show. Maybe you could give us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in certifyit, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Well, I'm a serial, as they call it, serial entrepreneur, not the kind you have for breakfast. But I've done 4 companies. They were all acquired. I didn't always make money. The investors pretty much made money, which usually is the case.
I've done that.
It doesn't always, but they range from a big dot bubble company called Wine Shopper, raised $46 million from Kleiner Perkins. Jeff Bezos was, I met with him quarterly. They invested $32 million. So that was my 15 minutes of the fancy life with corporate jets and the big wigs. And then that ultimately, when the market collapsed in 2000, that got bought by the best thing that could have happened to teach lessons. It got bought by a third company, the only one left standing after the 2 big ones, us and wine.com, spent tens of millions fighting each other and then collapsed. So they bought up the assets. The others have been bought and are used mostly in VoIP. One's called Line 2. The app now is owned by Ziff Davis. It's still in the App Store. Adds a second line to your iPhone. I did a company called Telio that was acquired very quickly by Microsoft. This was Skype. As Skype was coming out, we did a Skype that was fully integrated with email and browsers for click-to-call. Microsoft liked that. Timing is everything. $23 million for a 18-month-old company with a couple patents.
It's a good payday.
That was a good one. But throughout all of it, I've been sort of waiting for this AI stuff to happen because I studied it at Stanford in 1987 when it was all like Lisp programming and expert systems and neural networks, which are the foundation for what has become machine learning and all of that, were just a 2-credit seminar at the time. And so now, like, man, I'm like 60 and it finally got here. It's really coming on fast, as you said, in terms of like the generative AI tools like DALL-E, Midjourney, and then Stable Diffusion, and then you've got the ChatGPT for text and stuff. They have come out of nowhere. And now, DALL-E first got everyone excited. Image generation, you just type some words and it draws it for you. And then ChatGPT blew people's minds because not only can it answer any, write a paper for you, or list the top 10 things you should do to improve your health, or tell you which 5 companies it's going to disrupt the most. Literally, I asked it earlier today, what are the 10?
That's a good one.
It's going to, and it told me, and I have a list of them. I can read them.
Wow, that's amazing. That is an inquiry I'm going to make in there, because that's a good one to know, right? Especially when you look at your portfolio.
Yeah.
If it's making prophetic predictions on who it's going to run out of business, you should probably take it seriously.
I am definitely paying attention. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I bet you Google was up on that list.
So interestingly, let me pull up the list, because it is.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. And I would say, I mean, Google does have a ton of investment into AI that I think a lot of people don't even realize that they've been doing a lot of things. Yeah, they got beat to the punch on this search thing, I think, with ChatGPT, but they do have deep work in the art space. I think, what is it? They have that drawing one. There's a lot of stuff that's been out there for a while. It's just not been heavily publicized.
Yeah, and they do power a lot of the AI tools that we use today. So we use Google Cloud AI services. We use their image classifier so that the images in the certifyit app can be tagged, so they're searchable.
Sure.
But interestingly, ChatGPT did not name Google, even though you and I know that Google
is disrupted by them. Yeah,
right. But also keep in mind that its knowledge only goes up to early 2021.
Right.
2021 rather. So there was no chat about, because all of this is just going to be based on what people are talking about online. There is no actual, I'm going to say this carefully, there is no actual intelligence here. And that sounds, what I mean by that is it's just probabilities.
Last week's guest is the AI daddy, who's very popular on TikTok and is becoming one of the leading voices on this. And he actually said, it's not artificial intelligence. It's just actual intelligence. It's just, all it is just a summation of everything that we know. It's not thinking just yet. Right. All it's doing is, and that's the reason why you do see some bias in some of the responses. I've had female executives tell me, I don't like the content because it's very male oriented. And I say, well, then go tell it to talk as a female. And then they call me back and they go, oh my God, like it gave me a totally different perspective when I prompted it correctly. So I think there's a lot to that. And I think that prompt engineer, I've told all my friends that have kids, I'm like, get your kids into prompt engineering right now. And prompt engineering isn't, what's the best Thai restaurant in my neighborhood? It might be 4 pages and 2,000 words that are speaking to the AI and doing multiple regenerative iterations. And I think that's what people are missing just yet. But so back to your top 10 list. I'd love to hear what ChatGPT has to say.
So it says it's going to disrupt Walmart, Amazon, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, General Motors, Toyota, CVS Health, United Health Group, ExxonMobil, Royal Dutch Shell, AT&T and Verizon, Marriott International, Hilton Worldwide, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Comcast, Walt Disney, FedEx, and UPS. And I honestly am not really in agreement.
I would go back and ask again. Like I would love to know how it's going to affect Toyota and or General Motors. I think those kind of things are really interesting second inquiries to find out why it feels that way, because it might not be what we think. It might be automation of manufacturing. It could be, I could definitely see with ExxonMobil or Royal Shell, the ability to predict where oil discoveries will be found. Like that could be a massive thing that AI can do, because I've worked in that industry for years previously. And I will tell you, it's very, very difficult. I mean, you are drilling wells and you're crossing your fingers. You're looking at some geological data, but what you're looking around for is there anybody else with a pump out there? Because if they have one, that tells me I have a higher probability. But there could be some things with that. But it is interesting how it's looking at all the biggest industries in the world. Yes. I think, Peter, this goes back to 6 months ago. I had a guest on the show who said AI is coming, but the 2 things that it'll have a really hard time with are art and music and creative writing. And the funny thing is here we sit 6 months later, art, music, and creative writing have been the first 3 things that it pretty much cut the throats of and let bleed out in the ditch. So it's coming. I mean, it is coming in every way.
The most important thing that speaks to me about this, and every big corporation should be listening to this is that structured data is the key to training these LLMs and these other AIs. And that's the advantage that big corporations have over all the upstarts. Like I used to be in Silicon Valley. This time around, the big corporates enter this space with a built-in advantage, which is structured data, which if they've been doing their big data work of the past decade, they have been structuring their data, and now it's ready to train AIs. And now you think of automation of internal processes, external sales processes, manufacture, all of this. And they have the data. If they're been in business for 20 years, they have 20 years of data that they can train all sorts of AIs and specialist AIs, right? And I think that's where you're going to see corporations have a huge advantage over upstarts, because the upstarts are all going to have to use the same generalized databases from OpenAI and the other providers.
Peter, I think you just hit the nail on the head, because you're right. And I hadn't thought about that. Usually when we think about market disruption, the people who get disrupted are the big guys. I see this all the time in my consulting business. My day job is I do lean consulting. I've written 3 books on lean. I go into companies, call centers, law firms, doctors' offices, and try to figure out how to automate and reduce the time it takes to do their processes. The challenge with that is, I'm working with companies in the $500 million range that don't have any idea. They couldn't even tell me within 5 minutes of how long it takes to onboard a customer. I worked with a big box retailer many years ago that knew their labor cost per second per department, per region. So, labor cost per second was one of the biggest indicators of success. So when we would do something like put in the check-in system for you to clock in, we would determine where to put that based upon how many seconds it would save us, because we knew that a second of labor was, I think it was $179,000 a second, right? We had figured this out. So we knew if we moved it 3 steps to the right, we would save hundreds of thousands of dollars. But because they have all this data, right? They've got cameras. They're tracking where people are walking on a daily basis. They're doing spaghetti diagrams of their employees, of their customers. They're looking at the eye line of where people are looking at, and they're taking and moving products in different ways. Have you ever done this? You go into a big box grocery store or retailer, and you go in for one thing and you leave with a whole cart of things. We do this all the time. They programmed you to do that.
That store layout is a science.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Kroger, you can actually see it at Kroger stores in the US, where there is at the checkout, you'll look up on the back wall behind the checkout and you'll see a small screen with 3 numbers on it. That is using heat mapping to determine how many people are in the store and how long it takes for them to get through the store. And then at what moment in time they'll be checking out. They actually know when you walk in the store, how many minutes and seconds you're going to spend in the store. You don't even know that. And they know the second you walk in, based upon your body size, your heat signature, all sorts of things. So you're right. They have incredible amounts of data, so they can make themselves more efficient. If you are in that position where you don't have that level of data, you better hurry up, because you're going to get run out of business if you can't compete with that level of integration and, to your point, structured data and automation, right?
Right. And the cost advantages, unfortunately, for certain jobs, but the more that this shifts to AI, customer support, frontline customer support, I definitely don't think that's a good business to go into right now. Because that first tier is all going to be ChatGPT. Right.
Listen, companies like Zendesk, I have a company I've worked with for 6 years. We put Zendesk in and we turned on their AI feature about 3 years ago. 80% of their tickets are solved by the AI. And this is a dumb AI. This is not ChatGPT. This is just looking at previous conversations and figuring out how to answer current conversations. Yep. It's basic stuff, right? It's templated stuff.
ChatGPT can program. This is not basic stuff. No, we are entering the non-basic world of AI right now. And I think that is exciting, but also a little scary, because ChatGPT is one thing, and yeah, there's problems with bias and facts and stuff like that, which are problems. But I'm actually more worried about the images because of the way the human brain works. Seeing is believing. There's an expression, seeing is believing. And our brains are programmed to pretty much, if we see something, we
accept it. Yeah.
And we accept it. And with the DALL-E and these Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, these generative AI platforms for images, 5 years from now, they will be generative platforms for movies because movies are just strings of images.
Yeah.
And the quality in 5 years is going to be so good that I will be able to prompt engineer any politician or celebrity to say anything I want them to, and you won't be able to tell the difference.
That's scary.
And what does that mean, though? I mean, it's fun. I love it. I love playing with DALL-E. I love, I create all sorts of stuff with it. But I mean, the whole reason that we created certifyit is like, okay, since video is now an art form and not a method of record or there needs to be a platform where the video can't be altered or manipulated in any way, where it's verified as it was shot here at this exact time, this exact place. And there was no way even the user who created it can tamper with that video. It goes right up into the cloud, and then it's streamed from a secure link, and you can turn that link off. And that is literally all that certifyit is. It's the simplest thing in the world. It's just an app that captures a video. You can trim it, forces you to map it. If you don't have GPS, it won't let you post. It has to triangulate. And then it immediately, like before you know it, just uploads it. And you're like, oh, where'd my video go? And then it sends you the video with the link. And now you can share it. But you can't get to it ever. And it's on our servers and protected from manipulation there. And so the idea is kind of like a little bit, we want to be independent. We're a public benefit corporation. So we're for profit, but mission driven. Yeah. And the whole purpose of the company is simply to be like, okay, I'm about to go on a Tinder date. Is this person actually anything like their profile? So I'll just say, yo, just send me a certified video. Okay. And the idea is if it's that common, it's like, oh shit, they're going to ask for a certified video.
That's a great, I'm glad that you said that because I was trying to think through the use cases, and that's a really good one.
That's a really good one because it forces the person who creates it to reveal their location, and they can't dress themselves up in any way. It's raw video. And the same thing, $500 billion a year is lost to online sellers and consumers through fraud. So for online sellers, I talked to an Amazon seller, fake reviews are really, he said fake reviews cost him $1 million a year. He's a big seller. And if you look at the total cost, I looked at numbers, $200 billion a year in annual lost revenue for legitimate businesses due to fake reviews. And where these reviews come from, they come out of China and other countries where they have huge farms and they have different devices. So it looks like it's coming from different devices. We solve that because those devices can't get a GPS. They can't prove that they were there.
That's great.
Proves that you were there because you have to tag it to the location. And so we'll pitch those guys on. There's a level of certified review you can offer where it doesn't even have to be video, but we could adjust the app so that it proves you're there before you can type your review or something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then, so fake reviews, fake products, and fake people, that's really what certifyit is.
And unfortunately, you're right in the sense that fake reviews, that kind of stuff has actually become more and more common because Google, has basic requirements for what they'll even consider a real video. You go to, if you don't have 1,000 followers on YouTube, your video is not going to be seen by anybody. Right. Like YouTube just is like, sorry, you're worthless to us.
Right.
Same with likes and views and all those kind of things. So you're right. It's become a game to play, sort of like SEO was 5 or 6 years ago, where it was like you just had to play all these games, and you couldn't blame people for doing it because it was the only way to get noticed. Everybody, the big guys were doing it just as much as the little guys. Let's not kid ourselves. Coca-Cola was farming views to get a video to go viral. I mean, everybody. There are sites online. I can show you sites right now that will guarantee you to get a viral video. I mean, they'll guarantee you for a few $1,000s. They're like, you post it, we guarantee this will be front page of YouTube tomorrow.
And imagine if now you supercharge that with the ability to produce so much content through AI generated content. You can just flood channels with content because it takes seconds to produce images that would take days or hours for graphic designers. It takes seconds to do an analysis that would take weeks for, someone just searching and pulling all the data. And so I'm waiting for the first ChatGPT powered thing that's going to crawl websites and either give good reviews or bad reviews. And it can come up with all sorts of different reviews. And, so how are we going to know that humans are doing anything anymore unless we've got a way to know what's real? And that's what certifyit is.
That's great. So how does it work? It's an app, right?
Yeah, it's so simple. It is nothing more than, so it's funny. It has all this beautiful functionality that we had to bury because we built it for travel.
Okay.
And we launched two months before COVID. So we're like, oh, well, this isn't going to work. So, and because the mapping and the uploading was so that you could create these collective maps and all their posts of all your friends would appear and it would create a guide.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Well, nice idea, but bad timing. So, but what was the way the architecture was on that is that, of course, we had to geotag because we needed to know where they were to put it on a map for this travel app. And then we needed to upload it because we had to play it to the other people who were using the map, right? And so suddenly we're like, wait a minute, this architecture also has an interesting side benefit. It's that people can't manipulate it after they've recorded it. And so that's when we pivot again and went after this. And so I'm very excited about it. I mean, we're going to reach out to, the big travel platforms, Booking, TripAdvisor. There are stats that are really scary about how much fake review happens on TripAdvisor, Booking.com. And then reach out to eBay and the other online sales platforms. So you can ask a seller, can you just show me that it's exactly what you said it is before you ship it to me? And guess what? I'm going to find out where you live. So if you screw with me, because it's
it's funny. I got to tell you a story. Back in 2006, I was the COO of a company called BuildProof, and BuildProof launched where you could have a relationship between a contractor and a homeowner, but the money was held in an escrow account that you could go and visit online. And as the contractor completed steps, money would tranche into their account. And then what we would do is at 3 times, you could pick the number of intervals per project, we would send a third party out to verify information. And it was a very early sort of, blockchain kind of concept of making sure things were verified. And there was a real need for that, right? Because people don't want to be scammed. They want to have, they want to have, they want to know that they're doing business with somebody who's reputable. And one of the things that we would tell people all the time, one of our hardest problems was adoption, because when you mentioned to your contractor that you wanted them to use BuildProof, which would hold the money in escrow, about 80% of the contractors wouldn't bid on your job. And people would be like, how do I convince them to bid on my job? I'm like, do you really want them? If they're not willing, I want the guy who says,
it's to filter them out.
Right. So what we found, our business model was so flawed because as soon as you brought it up as a homeowner, if the contractor said, hell yeah, let's do that, I know I have a legitimate contractor. If the guy goes, oh no, I just want to get a check today, and that's a guy you don't want to do business with. So the problem was the app worked really well, but people self-selected. If they were crooks, they didn't want to deal with you anyways. So
I have a similar story. They weren't quite crooks, but we did try it during COVID. We thought, okay, real estate, how are people going to sell houses if they can't show people the houses, they can't tour them. We're like, so we did get about 5,000 realtors used. And then, we kind of found out that they didn't like the transparency that it gave. They couldn't do the fisheye. They couldn't do the airbrushing. They couldn't clean it up. And it was too authentic for them to sell a house. But
that's a really good point.
Yeah, but it'd be great to tell, if you have to deal with any kind of remote purchase of anything, great tool to just make sure you're going to get what you.
Well, and I think with deepfakes, if you're an executive and you're doing shareholder updates or shareholder calls and those kind of things, to be able to record that in a version that cannot be manipulated, to me is even way more valuable. I've got to think deepfake is going to start to attack board room level conversations at some point. I mean, that's going to be it's going to be because the manipulation of a stock. Listen, if I was shorting a company, if I had the means to short an ExxonMobil, the best thing I would do is hire somebody to do a deep fake, right? Of some conversation.
Yeah. And then have ChatGPT just like shooting out all these tweets and posts that say, oh my God, that company's tanking. And did you see this? And you could totally, because the degree to which you can automate now something that sounds very human, and what each time it answers the question, it answers it slightly differently, so more like a human. You can see how people are going to get fooled, and that's why there's got to be a way to know what's real. And there are a lot of people fighting this battle. We're part of the Content Authenticity Initiative that Adobe and there's like 200 industry companies in it, which is basically, so we're solving original provenance, which is, what's the original? What they're solving is maintaining edit history. So they're embedding cryptographic data in the image that provides an edit history of what happened to it so that the manipulation is evident and recorded. Because in the news business, you do have to be able to edit, right? Sure,
of course, but at least I want to see exactly. I mean, there's been lots of stories like that where the story gets pulled down or the story gets changed and they don't really talk about the editing history. That's a big, and listen, in the era of clickbait, there is a lot of, people don't realize that there's a lot of content engineering that goes on. For instance, I've got some TikTok influencer friends of mine, and they said you always mispronounce something, always in your video, because that will stimulate hundreds of comments of people that say, you dumbass, you don't even know how to spell. Like, you always mispronounce or always misspell something, because
my company is certifyit.
So it's funny that I mean, it's part of the game that people play to get around the algorithms and to get the comments and to do those kind of things. So at some point, you're right, we've got to get to this point. All right, well, hey everybody, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Convergence. Peter, tell us a little bit about how they find out about you. It's the website.
Sure, just go to certifyit.org. We are a public benefit corporation. If you go to the website, there's an About Us page. You can see the certificate and everything that proves we're mission driven. And then the homepage is just a bunch of stuff that sort of scares you into realizing, we might need this.
Fear is a good motivator, right?
It is, because I'm afraid. I mean, I'm an AI guy, and there's a lot going on in this country right now that worries. Well, I'm in the UK at this moment, but in my home country, the United States right now, about the manipulation of information and the impact that it's having on our society. That's terrifying. And I think there has to be a common base of truth. And part of that is to get a cap on what this coming flood of content that's going to be artificially generated.
Well, listen, I'm going to wrap this episode. Thank you all for joining us. And until next time. All right, what a great episode. I think even after the camera turned off, we got a lot deeper here into where things are going. And I think next week's guest, Kevin Myers, an old friend of mine, was the former head of marketing for Cold Stone Creamery and now runs marketing for a company called AI Advertising. I think what you'll hear in these next episodes over the next coming weeks with Kevin might surprise you, but it shouldn't, because the technologies and the systems and the AIs we're talking about are not new. They have been around for years, and they're being used every single day to determine the content that gets delivered to you, the messaging that gets delivered to you, the advertising. These AI tools are influencing your buying decisions. And candidly, they know what you're going to buy before you buy it. So make sure you tune in to this next episode with Kevin Myers. All right, until next time.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.